Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. MSI 2023. We're here for game number 3. It's a best of 3 from now on. Chronicle, you'll be used to this from the LCK. We're pretty comfortable in these situations.
What happens in those? I've never seen one before.
Well, a game happens, and then another game happens, and
Doesn't
potentially there's another game after that. Yeah, I know, it's crazy.
That is crazy.
It's super weird. But
I'm not participating in this bit.
Well, actually, you just did.
But now we
You're
have...
the straight man. Congratulations. Part of it. Boom.
All right, let's get into the game.
Kept meta.
Now we have a situation where T1 are on the red side once again, much like they were in game number 1. Will they ban Annie? Gentlemen, that's my question.
Yes.
All right,
that is my answer. I think it was really problematic. JDG obviously banned it from red side in game number 2. I expect T1 to do the same. T1 won that game, but it's not what I would call like a dominant game. It was so close. It was so back and forth. You know, I think either team could have won from that position. It's one incredible team fight from T1, and then the game is just over like that. So it's going to be really interesting to see what these two teams' reads are, because I think you could both walk away from a game like that saying, our drafts are fine. It wasn't really any problems. You know, it was just about execution in this one fight.
Certainly was, and here we are into the pick and ban already. It is. Okay. So Annie's left up yet again. Caitlyn's going to get hovered before Annie's going to get locked in, is what I'm expecting here.
And no recon for Keria, so the respect ban coming through as Keria was explosive on that engage. You know, the follow-up after that initial engage from Owner, from Zeus.
Look at Knight's face, man. He's so excited.
It's like, again? Me? I get for me? Thank you.
Serious? Have they even seen my bare tippers?
Yeah, it's an interesting read from T1 that the Wukong was the problem in the Annie Wukong combination. As we are going through this very quickly. Cassante, no surprise, but T1 actually going for the Jinx this time around has been a very successful pick. We've seen the fact that the range advantage you have into Aphelios can be a really big boon, particularly in how it allows you to set up team fights and how you're able to play much further back. The aggressive threat, though, particularly with Aphelios and Annie, like the 100-0 potential, cast your mind back to game number 1, as looks like another Lulu in the works here.
Yeah, and that is going to be the Aphelios Lulu combination picked once again. Do they pick up a support here for Keria, or is it just going to be Nautilus, just to flex it around a whole bunch, much like they did in game number 1? I wasn't a huge fan of the pick into the Annie, but they are still going to go there, and there it is, FLICKR locking that one away.
Yeah, it's interesting. It feels like a little bit of a salty run back almost.
Yeah,
I mean,
I was about to say, like, I think as long as we don't go for the Nautilus, you can make the adjustments. I think the Braum ban here needs to 100% come through, because although I guess the Lulu's already locked in, so scratch that.
Well, I mean, also, like, you can just change your jungler, and I feel like the whole dynamic of that draft does change, right? I don't think they have to go towards double marksman. If you have something like, you know, a little bit more aggressive that can dive, something along the lines of like a Viego even, who can help to follow up, who can help to actually get that first kill, things could look really good. You know, getting that first kill with the burst for Jinx, for Viego, could be really, really big. Again, it is going to be the Rumble ban in phase 2 here, as clearly are concerned about that.
Yep. Just banning away these magic damage junglers there as well. Of course, the Maokai was the first ban by T1, so you go down that list just a little bit, and the Rumble is going to be there. Nidalee, of course, an option, but first ban going to be the Gragas here from T1, and their second one, we'll see what it is going to be here in the second round. Round this one out. Viego taken away.
I like that ban. I do think Viego is really a good pairing with Annie as well. You know, I talked about the T1 side, but I do think anytime you have really high damage burst, pairing with Viego, it's so easy to get that first reset. Annie just full dumps all her damage on one target alongside that Viego.
And I wonder what the angle for T1 is going to be here now, because the Kindred didn't really end up working out in game number 1. We saw how well JDG was able to deal with that. But you do really want to put Owner on something with aggressive threat here. And Kha'Zix would be in the direction, but it remains as Owner, Rise Smile. Still, the magic damage being so heavily prioritized for T1 means that JDG, if they can pick up something in the ways of frontline here, can itemize very efficiently again.
I think we're pretty much guaranteed to just get double beefy boys for frontline, I think, for JDG. Like, they have clearly shown us how they want to play. I would not be surprised about, like, Sejuani, Ornn, or something along those lines.
Or Ornn Sejuani, just
or Ornn Sejuani,
spicy.
Another take on the duo.
Zid's out. Never mind.
So it is a very different look. So we want something maybe with a little bit more dueling power, potentially to mix things up against this Kha'Zix. Xin can actually perform pretty well in frontliner during the ultimate, so...
Not to mention paired with a Lulu. This is something that we saw at the height of Xin's prowess, was if you pick a Lulu, it gives him so much more longevity in these games. Crescent Guard, of course, giving you a lot of power in that department as well. So the Ornn is going to be paired alongside it. I like how balanced this draft is from JDG. Once again, they are just cleanly picking into their favorite archetype, as that is going to be Gwen insta-locked. No waiting, nothing like that. Zeus going to be taking that magic damage mantle towards the top side of the map.
Yeah, instant snap up there also alleviates a lot of the issues that T1 have run into when it comes to damage types. I do agree with you though. I think the composition from JDG, particularly in a meta that is centered around teamfight, it has great non-committal engage. If Annie's flashes up, you can go in aggressively, but the counter engage with Xin and Lulu specifically also is quite strong. And when I look at T1, outside of actually getting a Nautilus hook onto someone, you're going to be very aligned on picks, right? Someone walking where they're not supposed to, or a flank from Gwen or Cassante.
But at the same time, you know, it's like for T1, if the engage goes well, Ruler could just be insta-dead. There are so many threats to actually dive into the backline this time. It is not the situation that we had in game number 1 where T1 had this Nautilus mid who's kind of on his own going in. They have the Cassante to follow up on Keria. They have a Kha'Zix as well as this Gwen to be able to dive back and really threaten Ruler. So I do think it's going to be tough for Ruler to actually find space to sit there and auto against these champions. It's going to be so much about the peeling, so much about the counter engage here from JDG to keep their marksman safe.
Yeah, and a lot of it comes down to as well is, can you get FLICKR away from him? If he's in all-out range, Ruler can just be pulled out into a 1v1 against a Cassante, and in that scenario, T1 is going to be very, very comfortable. It's going to be a lot about JDG and how they can play out these team fights. And that test they've already passed many times this tournament. Their team fighting has been second to none before this particular series. And as we hop onto Summoner's Rift, we'll see whether they can do it yet again. They make their way out. Very cool, calm, and collected composition. The alliteration was unnecessary. I apologize. Definitely a lot of tools here in the early stages of the game.
I do also really like that Zeus is actually playing Ghost. You know, there is some benefit to playing towards the Ignite TP in this sort of style, but this is going to be about 5v5. It's not going to be about the 1v1, and the Ghost is so powerful in the 5v5, and even later on in the game, in those long lanes, can be really, really strong.
Also, yeah, also really like it because I think that particular when you're playing things like Gwen, you can feel very safe due to your E, right, and your W, but if you're too far up in top lane and you have Ignite, it still becomes very easily for a jungler, particularly with really strong ganks like the Xin Zhao, to just take you down early. And I do think that if the Gwen starts falling behind, if we get far enough in the game, you're always going to be relevant, but the actual late game, we really haven't been reaching that much this tournament. It has much more been about like the team fighting between like what 25 and 35 minutes. Someone gets a decisive lead, and from that point on, you don't really get to play the game anymore.
Yeah, the Glens that we have been seeing though have been, you know, Bin, who has looked fantastic, and Doran, who has never really been our premier Gwen player. And we'll just have to see whether this is going to be some vintage Zeus Gwen towards this top side, because he hasn't played it so far this tournament and hasn't really been favoring it in the LCK this year as well. So I'm excited to see whether he can get back onto the carry side of these matchups. There's been a lot of tanks for our young man in the top lane for T1.
Yeah, absolutely. For pretty much everyone in the top lane, besides Bin, it does feel like, as they're kind of sticking with that carry style. But it's going to be also really interesting to see if T1 do at all try to change things up, try to prioritize that early dragon, because JDG have been going towards that first dragon, feels like 5-6 minutes so far in this series, really trying to use that soul as a way to force team fights on their own terms here against T1.
Also want to highlight, Guma has gone for Ghost, which the last time he played against any, if I remember correctly, did go for Cleanse. And you're also playing with a Nautilus. It's not like a Lulu, like Keria has been really, really good about his McKills usage. Not going to be the case here, which means a lot more agency for 9. And as we saw in the last game, he knows how to use that very, very well. And I think in the early skirmishes and in the fights, if you can stay away from that backline dive, it's great, but does mean playing at a much higher risk.
Yeah, it's way higher risk, higher reward here. You know, if you do get caught by that full laning combo, you're probably just toast.
Oh yeah.
If you're in range though, oftentimes you're dead a lot of the time anyway. So
I like your optimism.
Yeah, Jinx probably wanting to utilize the rockets as much as possible as we check out this bottom lane for a moment. A little bit of potential action, but not really much going to come from it. as of course Missing and Ruler just trying to keep them at arm's length. And Carrier, being in a melee champion at this point in time, is going to be a little bit of a worry as far as the harassment. And Owner is going to come down and try and turn the tides on this one. Potential dive being set up as they are going to try and rotate FLICKR down as well, as there is the hook. It is going to connect. Missing going down relatively low, finding the extra rocket after the zap. Not a lot of mana on Gumushi there, as Carrier is just going to glide away. And the back is going to get stopped here as Gumushi is going to get spotted out. So, nothing really going to happen, but it was a nice little look to create some sort of action in this early game.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll see now, does Guma actually complete his base? You know, I kind of expect that he will. So he will go right back to base. So it's going to be about JDG just trying to pull shove this, trying to reset the wave, and Carrier trying to deny. His mid lane, you know, feels much more even thus far than it did in the Nautilus matchup. One of the nice things about Cassante in a matchup like this is that you actually have access to the range champions through the minion wave, right? Like Nautilus to actually look for any sort of engage has to step outside the minion wave. Cassante with the Q3, you can be able to just flip in the ante, gives you some recourse in a matchup like this, and also helps you to poke off things like the first strike from time to time. As we know, Knight in that first game got about 300 gold during the laning phase, purely from his first strike, which was a significant advantage.
Certainly was. And also, after level 6 was hit, Knight was just playing 2v1 with Tibbers and Annie in that mid lane, and FLICKR does have the opportunity of dragging the Annie away from her bear. So FLICKR now just going to dash past Knight, as he is going to be able to get a little bit of damage back, but not really too much to worry about here for both of these mid laners thus far.
And I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being another very, very slow early game, really outside of Owner going in, right, at level 3 in the first game, trying to get an early lead. It's been relatively low pace, as Zeus is going to get some snips in, is sitting on a lot of gold here right now.
So what you're saying is I can take a bit of a break for like 25 minutes and then come back for the team
I'd say 15, because
Yeah.
that's
Alright,
when
cool.
Baron spawns.
Exactly.
So if you want to...
Do you mind if I stick around?
No matter what.
Well, if you insist.
Yeah, I don't really have anywhere to be or anything like that. I'm kind of happy with this.
Okay.
So,
Sure. If you want to.
I'll just be here. I'm not all that necessary. But we'll see whether T1 and JDG are going to flip the script a little bit on that one, because it was just a little bit too intense for me. I'm not going to lie. I prefer having like a few skirmishes and things like this, where it's not just game over after one fight. Navi here towards his bottom side of the map, though, as Ruler is going to get zapped. T1, if they go in, would be really, really dangerous, but they are playing respectfully for the moment. Now channeling a bit of a back carrier.
Yeah, it was feeling tense, but Owner now going to use this time to actually just start up the dragon. It is warded out, of course. The pink is over the pit, but we can see not going to be a contest here from JDG, as Kanavi is just going back to base. So it will be T1 who is able to buck the trend. You know, they have the push on bot side.
Yeah, Hook going to connect there as well. Flame Chompers to layer that CC. Polymorph going to come through as he flashes over the wall, but Gumushi follows him, gets the heal. Rocket not going to connect there, as now it's Gumushi in trouble. It's just going to get eliminated as Knight turns up in the nick of time. Ruler's going to get kidnapped, though FLICKR picks up the kill, and T1 answer. It's 1-for-1 with a Drake on top for T1.
And T1 get greedy at the start there. They're like, we can take the dragon, and even without our Kazakhs there, go for an aggressive play. And the teleport from Knight looks like it will turn it all around. Not actually enough damage available as Owner. Should be fine here, gonna walk it off. But then, crucially, FLICKR with a flash isolates Ruler, and they're able to still get the 1-for-1 trade with the dragon going over to them.
Yeah, both mid laners just going blow for blow there. It was a great TP from Knight, and also a really nice heal bait from Missing. He held that heal for such a long time that I do think really kind of made Guma a bit overconfident. As Owner will be forced out, and Knight comes on the collapse. They're going to be able to defend the red buff here pretty easily.
Yep, pretty comfortable there. I really love the separation of Ruler and Missing. We're going to check out the replay here and to see Missing's denial of the Gumushi kill.
Yeah, I mean, they get the hook, they get the chompers to follow it up. Pink ward over the wall here. He waits till the ignite has actually already fallen off, then gets the full heal value. It's nice to see from Missing no sort of panic play coming through. And then Knight arrives, and you think this could just be all JDG. They're going to get a kill on FLICKR as well. But FLICKR finds the flash all out, isolates Ruler, gets the kill, and survives with the same play. So beautifully done from the T1 mid laner.
Absolutely amazing carrier there with the hook for the follow-up as well. But as the dust settles, it's about 100 gold that is in it between these two squads, and it was both Gumushi and Ruler that died. So not 180 carry getting a big advantage, having access to the minion wave alone.
It's also both mid laners getting the kill, so we're keeping everything nice and even in the early game.
A lot of balance, yeah.
But this feels like really the first time that, T1 do have the edge as far as farm in the bot lane. It does feel like they're really creating a little bit of pressure here on that bottom side with Keria playing the Nautilus and Owner already taking the Dragon on bot. Is up towards this top side. Kanavi, though, that was really close. I'm not sure if he would have taken it, but...
Yeah. Whim Comes Lightning just going to graze the backside of the Kha'Zix, who's going to now start off his popcorn chickens. Looks like Shelly going to get a bit of respite for the moment, as we haven't really had a look at this top side of the map. Having a look at the CS numbers, it is going to be the Gwen that is starting to pull out ahead, and she will become a problem as this game goes on. Make no doubt about that, but 369 has a lot more teamfight agency and a lot more engage potential as this game goes on as well, so it depends who gets to play their game as we move towards the later stages.
Might be looking at a 4v4. Keria now has made his way over. He is level 6 and missing is not, so I think it's a good call from JDG not to try and flip the game here at a Herald, which I say because I've seen that happen a lot, although...
Missing got 6
he
now.
did, yeah, dinked 6 off of the wave in mid.
Still looking for an option to come on in here as the snip comes down from Zeus, but in goes Kanavi. FLICKR is going to go all out on top of him, though, as he's just fighting this 1v1 isolated. He steals it away, and the Casante's dead as well. Knockups everywhere. 369 doing everything that he wants in this moment, and Zeus finds the kill in the end, looks to try and get out. I have no idea how he survived in that moment. T1, though, they lose out on the Herald. JDG finding the fight.
And crucially there, you see the value of a Lulu in these longer fights, right? With T1, the initial engage not clean enough. 369 buys so much time with the continuous knockups, and it means that if the T1 burst up front isn't enough to take someone down, particularly this early in the game where Gwen was still sitting a lot of golds, you're not going to win the longer fight.
Well, they don't really have any easy targets. You can see Zeus, up on this top side is winning out here, but 369 just flashes over the wall, rejoins with his team. You have Kanavi in the front line, but he has his ulti up. He gets wild growth, he gets shielded. You can't really turn on Knight because Knight was sitting on a stopwatch, so T1 can't burst him down either. And as you say, Maurice, as the second and third shields start to come through, you see it arriving there, delaying so much of the damage from T1. Knight has just been pounding them the entire time.
That Super Mega Death Rocket had have landed, maybe it could have made some sort of difference, but it was a 1v1 there towards the bottom side of the map. Ruler just making sure Gumayusi no ability to actually roam up there, and it is going to be Rift Herald secured. So JDG can now utilize that to get even further of an early game advantage.
And you have to be concerned about where those kills went. Knight getting another kill now, had an incredible Annie game in game number 1, and is going to be off to the races here a little bit once again in game number 2. I'm going to be interested to see where he goes with the build, though. Is he going to be going Rocket Belt in this one?
We did see a Rocket Belt.
Yeah.
FLICKR's first game, I think, was Rocket Belt, Annie.
Yeah, particularly with Guma having no cleanse, I think getting on top of him is really big.
Access?
Do want to highlight the... Ooh,
okay.
FLICKR
taking a bit of damage from Kanavi here, but Kanavi just going to give him some auto attacks and then move away.
Yeah, one highlight, Zeus hitting his Riftmaker is really big. I think that Gwen doesn't really work as a champion until you get Riftmaker. The moment you can start stacking that together with your Conqueror on every single ultimate, you're going to become way stronger. Might have a collapse on him here, though.
Potentially. He's just trying to get some shellfish here in the river, but it is dangerous. Knight going to move in. The bear comes down. The Gwen just dashes out of the way, puts up the mist, but is it going to be enough? Zeus is going to get knocked up into the air, not immune enough. And now FLICKR is going to come in, look to see what he can get done here as the flash forward. Hook is going to connect as well as Kanavi will be taken down in trade. Top laner for jungler for now. And T1, they do manage to answer. They get the Drake as well.
Yeah, it's important for T1 because they already took the objective. They're able to answer the trade there also. Up 2 dragons to 0 here, even in gold. T1 really looking good in this third game here.
Ooh, FLICKR is going to pull back, missing. The hook is going to connect as well, trying to keep Knight busy as he goes all out. Missing, altered himself, and will be able to flash away. The Incinerate's fantastic, but another Q is going to connect. Knight will flash away this time. Oh man, JDG limping out of that moment.
Yeah, big here. 41, they force the summoners, right? JDG, they do get away with their lives, but the trade, when we look at T1 able to trade back a kill and putting themselves at 2 Drakes this early on when it's a Mountain Soul on the cards is big. It starts off with JDG looking to trade cross map as they know that T1 is doing Dragon.
Yeah, exactly. They know that they're doing the Dragon, but it takes them so long to get the kill. You can see the T1 members were rushing up from that Dragon trying to support Zeus. So yes, he does go down, but only as FLICKR arrives here. The cross map ult coming through from Gumayusi, the ulti and the hook following up there from Keria. Owner gets in, and T1 are able to trade one back after taking the objective. And you said it, 2 dragons to 0, Mountain Soul on the cards. T1 definitely going to be wanting to try to get towards that.
Absolutely. Opportunity for JDG if they can turn this game around to stack up 4 of them, which is a terrifying prospect as well. Very high value dragon in the mountain. But that is down the line a little bit, 3 minutes on that next Drake. Soul Point available for T1. They can keep hold of things.
It was, in fact, the Rocket Belt, so interesting build here from Knight. You know, definitely not something that we see in NA as much, and we saw him go for Leandri's last time when there was multiple frontliners. This time, there's a lot more squishy members, so 5-pan passive.
Oh, missing, not going to get hit by that one, but the ulti's going to be there.
Nice.
Super Mega Death Rocket is exactly that, and Gumayushi says, thank you so much, gets a bit excited while he farms up these minions.
That was perfectly done, setting up Guma for the kill there. Yes, Carrier predicts left on the hook, but it didn't matter.
Ruler looking for an opportunity here as Carrier is just trying to be the bodyguard. Gumayushi wants to use that range, but Ruler will not be deterred. T1 not going to be able to find that as we are going to find the Q into this mid lane. Knight pulled back there as well as FLICKR dealing with this bear now as well, but Zeus is wrapping around. FLICKR relatively low as he flashes forward, doesn't find the Q though as the all-out comes down. FLICKR's gonna have to get out of this one. Tivers is being frustrating as well as Knight will just recall.
Great sidestep there from Knight, and defensively on the bot side, the chompers from Guma really denied the follow-up. That was huge. As those chompers placed between Kanavi and him, Ruler couldn't really go forward because there's no angle for Kanavi to keep on the fight.
I also think that Carrier was able to hook Kanavi out of his dash. So as a result, don't actually get on top of Guma. No trade opportunity. FLICKR there, though, getting way over eager with the flash forward. Doesn't have the damage. If Zeus is a little closer, then that might work out. Not going to be the case this time around. And second Herald about to comp, and wouldn't be surprised if we see a full-on 5v5er, although Knight's still in bot and doesn't have his TP available.
Yeah, so I don't think JDG are actually going to contest for it. You know, it has been largely T1 that have been making the better plays around Herald throughout this series. But this time they're kind of getting the best of both worlds. If they're able to grab this Herald, they have their dragons as well, so they're going to be really sitting in a pretty good spot. Gold slightly in the favor of JDG, but it is Gumayushi who has the advantage, and it really has been about which marksman can get the most ahead, which marksman can have that big effect in the 5v5. There are about 10 wards here for Knight to pick up.
And man, this is looking like just money everywhere here for Knight, who clears up all of them. So much value, basically a minion wave in that tri-brush. You love to see it. T1 though, they're going to move over and look for Shirley. And over the wall goes 369, and he's looking like he wants a rumpus. We'll see whether he does get one as Kanavi moves on in here as well. Zeus on the flank angle. T1 are going to back away. And Shirley gets back into her code.
Knight doesn't quite have his flash, so I'm sure JDG would love to delay for that. It's only up in a few seconds.
Well, now missing in that brush. Knight off to the side. Does have Tivers at the ready. Teleport to get into the back of this pit. FLICKR is going to turn up now as Owner just walks over, presses the smite button. FLICKR now looking to try and get out of here. He should be able to do so, or maybe he doesn't have to because he's so tanky. Zap is going to connect onto Kanavi as they're just having a battle 1v1 in this Baron pit. 369 wanting to escape. There's the knockback from FLICKR. Double knockup to come forward on the wombo combo. Will connect. The Kha'Zix's going to go down. Carrier will follow FLICKR. Takes missing out of the fight, but now it's Ruler he has to contend with. And Ruler should be able to land a couple of autos. Gets the double kill. And JDG win again.
JDG bide their time so incredibly well there. Knight was missing his flash at the beginning of that fight. They wait until the exact moment it comes up. He finds the two-man stun. They have the knockups to follow through. And again, JDG's team fighting around this Annie has been immaculate.
And although T1 is able to pick up the Herald, look at what JDG is getting. Immediately afterwards, they win the fight and they get the first Drake come through here. Mountain Drake going to be picked up for them.
And it's all about the flash. Again, JDG don't want to hard commit to the fight until that is available here. Yes, Owner is able to get in, get that smite. They do secure the Herald for themselves. FLICKR eventually was able to pick that up. But in the meanwhile, the timer is ticking. Just now, the flash is available for Knight. He comes around, he steps forward into the speed shrine, and he's going to find an angle here onto multiple members on the T1 side.
And we see Ruler able to kill force away, and then the moment that combo comes through, look at this. They don't even need the second activation. Owner goes down right from the get-go, and the moment that you lose the threat of Carrier, right, if you can't see someone, you're gonna get taken down. Ruler is completely unmatched, and T1, they already got the objective, right? And maybe you have to give up FLICKR, that would have been the end of the world, but instead, cost them a lot more.
Absolutely, and despite the fact Guma was clearly very well aware of the threat from Knight, he was positioned very far back, but Owner has got to pay respect on that Kha'Zix as well. The Kha'Zix is extremely squishy, and if you get caught in that combo, that is a juicy pick to get as well here for JDG.
Coach Home looking pretty happy with how this whole situation has gone. Of course, his entire career as a coach has had FLICKR standing in the way at quite a few moments. So, very interesting seeing how he's going to feel after this game. Because JDG could be at match point, or T1 could get there themselves. Knight just standing his ground, feeling pretty happy. Zeus still looming in this game, and I feel like the Gwen could be a huge problem, or couldn't, or may not be that factor as well. We'll just have to see how things continue, because if they find a way to mitigate Zeus, it could be a very, very difficult game for T1.
And I do think as a lot of how the fights have gone, comes down to Knight, right? Because if you are able to catch the Gwen either in the Shroud, which if Knight is in there and you can hunt it to 0 the Gwen, you're going to be completely fine, or just zone them away, force very aggressive Shrouds just to walk up, a lot of the impact of the Gwen is going to get gone. I think the main thing here, though, is that unlike, for example, game number 1, neither team has been able to decisively get map control, and that means that for specifically champions like the Kha'Zix and the Gwen, there is still space to operate, there is still space to try and get around and get on top of Ruler. Because I do agree, once we get past like 2-3 item marks for this Gwen, if Zeus ever gets on top of Ruler, even with a Lulu, he might be in deep trouble.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of deep trouble, this turret is in exactly that. Is now Kanavi off to the side, possibly going to get caught out. Avoids the zap, but like you say, Knight is looming off to the backside. The dredge line not going to connect. He throws down the bear, but it's not exactly onto the priority target, and the Flame Chompers are going to catch him. Knight will fall to the Super Mega Death Rocket, but Tibbers will get very, very mad. Can Ruler find this teamfight is the question, but he can't really get too many of these autos as FLICKR is dashing absolutely everywhere. Finds the knockback with the Q, and Gumayushi will take down Kanavi. There is one kill there for missing, but Ruler sidestepping. He wants to, but it's going to be the shutdown, and Gumayushi will find it in the team fight. JDG keeping 2 alive though, so I think this game will continue. Bellow's Breath is good to mitigate the CC.
Carrier barely stays alive, and T1 find a win this time around, though JDG not routed. Still able to hold on.
Yeah, and critically able to get some back. Otherwise, that could have been a Baron angle there. That was 20 minutes on the guard there.
Yeah. That's a Nexus angle right there.
As we can see this one more time, but Knight doesn't have flash this time, and that is the critical difference. It's a great sidestep, but he knows there's no choice but to just drop the hammer here. Has to pop down Tibbers, does go into the stasis, but Zeus is threatening on the other side, so they can't actually just full commit with Reckless Abandon. If everyone goes forward and leaves Ruler alone with Zeus, that is not going to go well. So the Chompers come down and they finish up that first kill.
And like in the previous play, think that T1 could have just left FLICKR out, right? In this play, maybe you just let Knight, the moment he gets spotted, 2 people mark him immediately, let it go, because now you try to salvage the play, and you only end up falling further behind. And crucially, Guma gets a big shutdown there, and now getting very far along towards that 3rd item.
Yeah, already has the LDR, working towards a Hurricane here. You know, nearly a full item up on Ruler, and that is massive at this point. And Knight really taking a pretty big pit stop in his build. He's going for a full Morelos here, which I don't love. I mean, it's really just Zeus who's going to have much healing on the other side. Yes, it does have Spell Pen on it, so there's like a little bit of something there, but I just don't think it's the play. There's so many other items that I feel like would be way more effective.
Yeah, not my favorite either, unless he is going to turn it into a Shadow Flame instead, just keep the Oblivion Orb. Maybe that's an angle there, but we'll see what does actually happen. As Kanavi moving on up, and Owner off to the side, looking for that flank angle. Zeus here as well. FLICKR just standing in the front line. And dives forward, doesn't get that Q. Optimistic one there onto Ruler and missing, and they will be able to sidestep it. Now Carrier is the one looming in the fog of war.
Remember, there's no flash on Guma now, and Knight has his flash back, so...
Well, Hex Flash going to come forward. He finds Knight in the backline, gets the knock up onto Ruler, but Ruler is going to be safe for now. The Ram is going to come down. Kanavi gets into that backline as Gumayushi is just trying to kill him. He does manage to take him down, and it's a double for the Jinx. The Zap's going to make it a triple, and T1, they wipe them again, and is it just over?
I don't think they can end this time. We'll see. They're going to be going mid. It's not double marksman, so it could be tough here, but at the very least, they will get the inhibitor. And the CC chain on Knight was so critical. Knight used his flash, didn't even get his timbers off there as T100 0, and I think it's over. It's over.
Again, Carrier finds an engage, and it goes from teamfight victory to destroy Nexus. 2 games in a row. FLICKR, he's going to execute himself to the turret, but he's not needed for the Nexus damage. And once again, this time about 30 seconds earlier, it's teamfight and done.
I'm speechless. This is a T1 that, as good as they have been in the regular split, relied exclusively on early game snowballing, right? It was Gen G, the team that hang back and relies on their team fighting power. And T1, after what I think was a really heartbreaking loss for them in the finals against Gen G, completely unexpected, clearly have turned over a new leaf because they have gone all in on team fighting, and it's working for them.
I mean, they played out that last team fight so incredibly well. You know, I did think going into it, you know, looking at the situation, there's no sums on both the ADs, but Knight has flash, he has his rocket belt. I thought that was going to give JDG the edge, but Guma played so far back, was always hitting frontline without ever being in range of Knight, and then as Knight starts to move forward, everyone from T1 just goes in on this guy. They CC him up, they burst him down before he can even get his ult off. And Knight was a complete non-factor, and that was the difference maker in that final fight. T1 just crushed through. Not only did they dominate, they end the game.
And I want to highlight something. Carrier has played so many different things, but deep in his heart, he just wants to play Nautilus and hook people. Yep. And that final fight was a perfect example.
It's exactly what he did. Hats off as well to Bengi and the coaching staff back there as well, identifying that they can get that Annie first pick, and then if they've got a response, if they've got an answer, then maybe just switching over to the Jinx side of the matchup is the way to make that one work. Utilize that range and find those opportunities. But man, do or die now for JDG towards this upper side of the bracket. Of course, they're not out of the tournament, which is absolutely fantastic. But man, I really hope that we get 5 in this one. So we're going to need JDG to come back, and if the analyst desk could make that one happen, let us know.
I mean, I have some powers sometimes, but it's just insane. Have you ever gotten a door smacked in your face? I think that's what JDG feels like. And it didn't just happen once, it just happened
twice in a row.
Again, Jack.
Yeah, that's demoralizing, I feel like. Because those games were very competitive. A couple fights go differently, it's a 3-0.
Yeah.
And now they're like, well, it's 1-2. We're in big trouble, and they're just losing fights in the worst spots.
Yeah.
If that fight happens at any other part of the map, they're not able to push to end both times.
With the Herald.
I think the biggest thing is just the number of people that stay alive from T1 in both instances. And like, we may as well just bring up a replay of that final fight because really the biggest thing is all 5 members of T1 survive.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes the big difference here is that the fact that you're able to get access here onto Ruler here with Owner on the back line, as Carrier does get a great hook to start things off. But you can see again, the kind of front to back is deteriorating here. Owner managed to sneak into the back line. Carrier's able to set him up, so Ruler isn't really able to get the damage onto the carries that you really want to, and that's where he now has to flash away and just sets up nicely for Jinx to be able to carry.
Like 100 health on Gumayushi.
Yeah.
Just from Orin Zin. If anyone can just sneak through with any little bit of damage, it would be completely different. But that's League of Legends. Like, that's the margin of victory for teams at this level. Sometimes it's 50 health on your AD carry.
Yeah, and it was so close with the average game time this series so far, and we've seen 3 games. It's 25 minutes, 28. So, you know, they talk about the T1 Baron. I think we're going to have to talk about the 25 T1 end the game, no matter what the circumstances.
Well, I mean, so coming into this series, my expectations were that T1 would be the stronger early game team. They'd be able to not even give JDG those proper late game team fights. I wasn't expecting the teams to have those late game team fights 22 minutes into the game and then use those to end it.
But I think one of the things that was done really well by JDG in game 1 was the fact that every time T1 were trying to push sides and quickly collapse onto the mid lane, they weren't actually giving anything over. We saw Knight being able to walk back, get away from that, but we're actually seeing in game 2 and game 3 is that they're falling victim to these more often than not. Like when T1 had taken that Dragon, they're immediately going mid, they're catching Kanavi and everyone as they're trying to get on towards the Gwen. There's so much more activity from T1 that's going successful in these early stages that's actually letting them go into an more even spot come these team fights.
And I think that when we look at the first major replay of this game, when JDG find a fantastic fight around Herald, we were going in with the expectation, well, this is going to be game, right? Like, beautiful team fight. And as we start this one off, you can already start to roll the clip, because keep your eyes on Knight as he kind of makes his way from the back. He's kind of forced back, but he's forced to find this flank. And as T1 are kind of collapsing on two sides, well, three sides even, as they come in through the top side, they come in through the Herald, and then they come in through the bot side, or rather mid lane. It's this three-pronged collapse that looks very not good for JDG initially. Now, if we can pause it here, you'll notice that what Knight is primarily doing is he's keeping track of what Zeus is up to. These guys are having a staring contest as to who can actually find this engage, but T1 feel more confident, and this bot lane, well, I say this bot lane trio, I should say, are going to get collapsed on very quickly from Knight's beautiful engage. So let's restart this fight once more, and just keep your eyes on Knight. As he's zoning Zeus away, he finds this window where he can quickly flash in as this one fight is starting with FLICKR, and he finds the bot lane. It's 369 and Knight acting as these cornerstone pillars. Chat was highlighting it at the beginning of the day. Every time JDG find a good fight, it's because this top and mid lane are able to find those beautiful engages time and time again.
And it's also just great positioning coming into River from JDG as well. You can see Ruler has an exit. He's able to Gale Force away from Keria. He has his squad set up around him. It means that he's safe to go for these fights, but that's not necessarily what we saw when we got into those later points.
Is it a case where now 2 games in a row, T1 kind of has that first fight happen to them? They say, okay, let's write it down. What happened? What happened? Who gets engaged on? How do we stop that? And they learn really quickly. Is it the same in the 2 games, or is it a different situation in this one, Jat?
I feel like these fights are so instinctual.
Yeah.
And the team comps are going to vary by little bit, and I don't necessarily think that anyone's changing their idea. I would say Knight and FLICKR have both been a little over-eager at times in this series, but other than that, like, the way Ruler and Guma have been playing is very close to perfect in my opinion, actually. So we'll have to just see. Like, it's razor's edge on all these fights.
I really think that T1's adaptation in this game was Knight is the problem. For so long, we've been talking about how the AD carries are what make these fights, but T1 came into this game and said, no, Knight is the problem, and we're going to shut him down. And Daddy, you're going to run us through this next fight and show us exactly like how they actually shut Knight down and prevented him from really dominating in the fight.
Yeah, as we start to go through this, as we can play it on, the big thing that you want to notice is the amount of vision that's actually set up on this top side as Knight starts to TP in, and then also keep your eyes on where Zeus is coming from too, because Zeus manages to always have position just on the side of these fights as he starts to come in, which makes it very difficult for Ruler to actually start to push up. So as this is going forward, JDG want to try and aggress onto the main fight, which is happening over here, but they're just not getting in a position to do so because Zeus is constantly in a position to zone this backline away the entire time and make it so difficult for them to actually approach up, which means T1's able to deal with the threat of the Annie despite the stopwatch, and then without that just make it incredibly hard for Ruler to really play these fights. The fact that you get this barely surviving Gumayushi for a little bit, who's then able to turn this around, is just absolutely crucial.
And you can see how quickly JDG collapsed the second that Knight disappears. That Annie stun was so influential in game 1. It was so influential in that initial fight around the Herald, and the moment that it's eliminated, so many of the resources that give JDG this teamfight power get eliminated.
It's crazy, and we talked about Worlds before and kind of how that series played out and how it was a very successful first game out of JDG that then gets turned into a very successful 3-1 out of T1. I mean, if you're JDG, some of the members, of course, are thinking about that. And if you're T1, you have to just be so confident that even from a deficit, you can get these moments.
Yeah, and I'm trying to figure out what JDG is thinking for game 4. So they selected blue side, right?
Yeah.
And to me, the biggest difference between the two teams in this draft is the type of champion that the mid laners are playing. So Knight has played Annie, Cassio, Annie, control mages, and FLICKR's played Nautilus, Tristana, Cassante. So the way they approach fights is very different. So like FLICKR can be much more aggressive because he has a bigger health bar in the majority of these fights, and it's changing the way that they approach. And like this game did turn actually with Knight getting caught. So I really do wonder if JDG is going to continue this because it is the biggest draft difference between the two teams.
I think JDG are just going to remove Cassante. I think it's too much of a problem. It's too flexible on the side of T1 and what they can do with it in the draft as well. So I think that that's going to hit the ban table, and JDG are just going to be like, no, we're not dealing with it anymore.
Well, a spot in the final here at MSI is on the line, but can JDG defy the lazy scriptwriters, or will it be another 3-1 between T1 and JDG? Don't go anywhere. Game 4 is coming up right after this.
Flashes over the wall, but Gumayushi follows him, gets the heal. Rocket not going to connect there, as now it's Gumayushi in trouble. It's just going to get eliminated as Knight turns up in the nick of time. Ruler's going to get picks up the kill. There's the knockback from FLICKR. Double knock-up to come forward on the wombo combo. Will connect. The Kha'Zix's going to go down. Carrier will follow FLICKR. But Ruler is going to be safe for now. The Ram is going to come down. Kanavi gets into that backline as Gumayushi is just trying to kill him. He does manage to take him down, and it's a double for the Jinx. The Sap's going to make it a triple, and T1, they wipe them again, and is it just